I was shocked to find out that karma bus run over my cheating wife. I'm finally at a point where I can't stand this anymore. I've been in love with this woman for a very long time, maybe a couple of years at this point, and I'm not sure if I should just KLL it or attempt to make something with her. I met my ex-wife, her sister, when I was 23 years old, and the relationship developed very quickly, and by 26 I had my son and daughter and had gotten married. However, within months of being married, my ex-wife had an affair, but worse than that, the man she cheated with had gotten her into heroin. After confronting her on this, she said she was going to get help, but instead she left in the night. I haven't heard from her in 4 years, and last I've heard she's still with that guy and are homeless in Las Vegas. Not sure how true that is, but being focused on holding it together for the kids, I really don't have the time to chase her down, nor do I want to after what she pulled. I ended up getting a divorce in absentia. I did, however, maintain a very positive relationship with my in-laws after the fact. Every other weekend my kids stay over with their grandparents on that side, and they pretty much treat me like a son still. I still go to parties at Christmas and I'm reasonably liked by the family. Nobody talks about my ex anymore, mainly to not worry my kids. My oldest, my son, is very hurt by his mother leaving. He's 9 now, and I've had to get therapy for him after he told me he hoped his mother was dead. She had been getting verbally abusive toward the end, which was when he was around 5 or 6. Anyhow, in the year following my ex leaving, her sister and her boyfriend had started coming around a lot to see the kids. They knew I worked a lot and would babysit and call it practice, as they wanted to have children of their own. My kids loved them and were spoiled by them, which I didn't mind because we all needed a little positivity. They got married and were very in love. However, her husband was killed in a workplace accident shortly after the birth of their daughter. It has been extremely rough and painful for everyone involved, as one can imagine. I followed my Sil's example and began to take her daughter to give her time to herself if things got too hard to deal with or she needed alone time. She's been in grief counseling for a few years, but she still wears her ring and has told me she can't ever imagine dating again. I talk to her about him frequently and she's gotten to a better place, but she's still very much in love with him. I can't imagine that sort of pain. Over the last 2 years we've been a more constant figure in each other's lives. My kids love their aunt and I have her over for dinner a couple times a week. My daughter and her daughter have become close and love being around each other, so they have sleepovers. I've moved on from my ex by this, but the idea of dating possibly someone dangerous, as their mother has kept me out of the dating scene. I don't know when it happened, but slowly I began to get soft on my Sil. She's a great mom for what she's had happened to her. She's one of the sweetest people I know, and her sense of humor always leaves me laughing and happy. Then I started realizing that I'm physically attracted to her. I've always felt kind guilty about it because her late husband was a good friend, and since she's obviously is still grieving, so I've kept it to myself. Since COVID started we've been together a bit more because social distancing has had us lose contact with most other people. Nothing romantic has ever been discussed and I try not to flirt, but last week it was very late and after the kids went to bed I made us a few drinks, not enough to get drunk, but she decided she'd rather spend the night, so I took my couch. I woke up to breakfast this morning and the 4 of us felt like the sort of family I've always wanted. She even kissed my forehead, which is not something she normally does. I still didn't say anything, but after she left I found my son quietly playing with his toys in his room. He looked upset, so I asked him if he was alright. He tells me point blank, in the way only a kid can, that he wishes Sil was his mother. I sat down with him and asked him why he thought that way, and he gave a whole bunch of reasons: her being nice to him, that she never yells about anything. He likes seeing her at his grandparents' and she draws pictures with him, which I didn't know they did. By the end of it my heart that is already melting for this woman even more wound up. When visiting, dropping them off with their grandparents, I tried to breach the subject with her folks to kind of feel around how people would see. I made a joke about she and I acting like a married couple sometimes, and they didn't laugh and were kind of standoffish, friendly, but either they know something or they disapprove. It's getting too hard for me to ignore or pretend it's not getting to me. I'm in love with her. Either I've got to KLL it and find some way not to think of her, or I have to find some sort of way to navigate through this situation and tell her everything. If anybody out there has any insight on how to approach a widow, especially one who was married to a friend. With this sort of intention, I could really use your help. TLDR, Sil and I became close after my divorce to her sister and death of her husband. She's great with my kids. I'm in love and don't know how to proceed. Update. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone who gave me advice on how to proceed and ideas and things I could maybe say to my former Sil. What I ended up doing. Shortly after making the first post, I remembered that my children were spend Sunday night over their grandparents' house, and typically when they do this, my niece, Sil's daughter, will join them. I allow these bi-weekly visits because I think it's important for them to maintain a healthy relationship with their mother's parents. And Sil lets her daughter go because she enjoys playing with my daughter. Well, I realized we'd both have a free night. Normally I'd just game or hit the gym an extra night, but I figured it would be the perfect opportunity to Sil without the kids being around. So I sent her a text saying, "Hey, kids are out this Sunday, was thinking you might want to get dinner." It was a fairly upscale place that reopened 2 months or so ago for outdoor dining. I never ask her out to dinner and we're almost never alone together, or without a child in the other room. She says she'd love to, and so my panic starts setting in because now I've got to actually act on my feelings. I ask her if she'd prefer meeting at my place and taking one car or meeting at the restaurant. She says she'll come by my place first. I'm a bit more cleaned up than normal, dressed up but not overly dressed. She shows up and my God, she's in a very nice evening dress, makeup not something she normally wears. Really looking stunning. I must have been slack-jawed for a second. I had to be lol. We make a little small talk, compliment how we look, but I still don't have my nerve yet and she isn't pushing the issue. Dinner is really wonderful. They had live jazz type group playing. Definitely coming back to this place. She tells me this is the first time she's really had an adult social outing that didn't involve her daughter in a few years, and I mention that it's about as long for me. We're laughing, joking, talking, a little casual touching here and there. I can't seem to find my nerve though. I'm afraid of ruining this moment, so I just submit to having fun. But as we're leaving, my mind snaps and I'm just like, duck it. And when we stand to go back to the car, I give her my arm and we walk back to the car arm in arm, no awkwardness, nobody mentioning that it's happening. I open her door for her and I plan on driving her back to her car. As I open the door, she stops me. Looking sort of nervous, she just outright tells me to stop and that she wanna kiss me. There was no alcohol at dinner, so this is all her. So I pull her in and we kiss. I can barely describe how wonderful it felt to finally touch her. Well, the kissing goes on outside this restaurant with her leaned against my car for at least a half an hour. When we finally break, we share a few more dreamy looks before we get in the car and drive back to my place. She's holding my hand as I'm driving. I don't think I've ever been happier. I confess to her that I've started having feelings for her a long time ago, but what with the terrible things we went through, I didn't want to scare her away. She tells me that she's carried a torch for about 6 months herself. At that time I had gone on a couple Tinder dates, and since we were just friends, I described what a mess of a time those dates were. She tells me she began feeling intensely jealous and angry that I was seeing these girls. It was about that time it clicked in her mind that she had somehow developed feelings for me. As it turns out, I didn't approach her because of her late husband, and she wasn't approaching me because she was afraid I'd see too much of her sister, my ex-wife, in her and start to resent her for it. I invited her in after we got back home and we decided to try and fight off the desire to jump straight into bed, and just sat on couch snuggling and talking about what we would need to do to make this a working relationship. There was some really teary moments there. We of course talked about her late husband a little and where she feels in the grief process, saying I don't want to rush her and that I'm not going anywhere. If she needs time, I'll wait as long as she needs me to. She says that she feels like she's in a place where she could love again, that she's long past feeling guilty for having feelings for me. It was something she struggled with. She then brought up her sister, and the obvious questions a few people asked in the comments. What would we do if X ever decided to show her face around here again or try to get back into my kid's life? What if she comes back reformed and apologetic? Would I take her back? I told Sil that's a hard no, that I've forgiven her for cheating on me, but I will never forgive her for what she did to my son. He was quite a sunshiny and happy boy before his mother started cheating, using, and lashing out at him. He's doing better now, But for a long while his behavior and negativity for somebody so young troubled me. Sil was concerned how he might react to her, as unlike our respective daughters he is old enough to understand everything. I told her not to tell him as it might embarrass him, but not too long ago he told me as wished his aunt was his mom instead. We said we were going to take it slow and now go to fast with things, but the kissing started again, and since we were in private this time, we gave up the fight to stay out of the bedroom. I have had fantasies throughout the duration of my feelings for her, and getting to pet her face in the morning was one I finally got to live out. Moving forward, we are going to establish date nights and work on building on our already strong foundation. When we inevitably tell our folks we're a couple, we're going to do it together. But that's where I'm at. That's it, that's my update. If this subreddit allows, maybe I'll do another to say how the parents, in-laws, and kids take the news. 2 years of wishing she was mine and now she is. Better not F this up. Redditors' reactions. Redditor 1, A++, would watch the movie adaptation. Redditor follow-up, OMG yes. I don't usually care for romance as a genre, but man oh man, I'd love to read this story. How wonderful for all of them, especially the kiddos, to have a loving home after all they've all been through. I don't even care if this post is made up, but I hope it isn't. This made my day. Also, a million thanks to you Father Son Holy Toast for filling this sub up with all the great posts you share with us. I've been on this sub for a little while, but today I got hooked. Just reading through this sub for hours, and your posts are so well put together and clear. And I love when you share the ops comments to give further context to the narrative. It is clear that you put a lot of time, energy, and effort in here, and I hope you know how much it is appreciated. Thank you. Op comment. This one had me cheering out loud for Op. Redditor 3, this is the story 2020 needed. Redditor 4, this is so romantic I'm crying. Redditor follow up, I'm a 41-year-old man and I welled up a little. Was not expecting that. Redditor 5, if you go to the ops page there are more updates. They told the family and talked to the drug addict ex-sister. Redditor 6, I just love the mental image of Oop petting his Sil's face, it's so sweet.